All right, Will's World. He talked to Mitch Hewitt, who's the head coach at Chardon, who played under Urban Meyer.
Now joined with Mitch Hewitt, head coach here at Chardon High School, former player at Bowling Green, and you were a standout linebacker under Urban Meyer when he first got into coaching, first head coaching gig. Take me back to those days when Urban just got started and how he was and what he brought to BG.
It was a situation where the previous coach, it was losing seasons. And then we see that we hired a head, or really he was going to be a head coach, but he was a position coach at Notre Dame. And we're like, oh, we only got a wide receiver coach from Notre Dame. So we were a little disappointed in who they initially hired. And then day one, I still remember him walking through the team meeting, telling us to sit up in our seats. And it was just the most intense feeling of 5 minutes. And we go, wow, what did we get ourselves into? So life really changed after he stepped on campus.
And he really turned that program around. You were 2-9 the year before. Then he comes in 8-3. Right. He was there for a couple of years. Talk to me about what he did differently there at Bowling Green.
Well, one thing, he cleaned up the program. He chased a lot of talented kids out who didn't have necessarily the greatest character. And he made people buy into being a Falcon all over again. And he built relationships. It was a very open program in the sense that he would call you out. I mean, there was no hiding. It was, you were stealing from the cookie jar, very intense, in-your-face type of thing. And a lot of people didn't like it. I mean, I think there was 20-plus kids on full scholarship who said, this isn't for me. I mean, they walked away from a $60,000, $70,000 education, but the guys that stayed, ultimately we were able to have success the following year.
And you've been around the state of Ohio, went to high school here, and then Bowling Green, and now back.
Right.
Although I know you're not a Buckeye fan, but you still know what the team is about and what their football team is. Knowing Urban Meyer and his football philosophy, how do you think that'll translate to the Buckeyes?
Well, I think what Urban said at his press conference is exactly right. I mean, Ohio State's not broke. I mean, the cupboard's not bare. The talent's there. The recruiting in the state of Ohio in the 2012 class is abundant. I think he's got a great opportunity. He's a tremendous recruiter, as he's known for. He's going to bring in a staff, and clearly he's got an unlimited checkbook as far as who he can bring in. So, for him to win a Big Ten championship next year, I don't think it's out of the question. And really, I think that's part of the reason he decided to get back into it, in the sense that if you compare the Big Ten with the SEC, I think week in and week out, the Big Ten is a little bit kinder. It's not to say that there's not great teams all throughout the conference, but it's not quite the SEC, and I'm probably pretty sure that he would agree with that.
And while playing under him, obviously the coaching bug rubbed off on you. You're now here at Chardon. Talk to me about maybe some principles or some things that he taught you while you were at Bowling Green that maybe you teach your kids here at Chardon.
I think coaching, I read somewhere that Woody Hayes' last year, he made $38,000 at Ohio State, and he taught a class. And now you see about $4 million. So clearly college football and coaching in general is to some degree based on wins and losses. But I think if you ask anyone who has ever had a role model, a lot of times they say, it was my coach. And it wasn't necessarily based on wins and losses like the average guy who picks up a paper on a Saturday, all he cares about is the score. But you ask kids that walk the hallways and the impact that they've had. And I know that I look back on my life, I've been blessed to have great coaches, Urban just being one of them, Bob Doyle, another head coach here, Jim DePolfi, another guy that was here before me, and Greg Brandon, who followed Coach Meyer after he left for Utah. So it's just it's about relationships. It's about ultimately building young men that they go on to be great fathers, great husbands, and I think you can do that in coaching. I think it's one of the last places where no means no in society, and you can still be hard on a kid and not necessarily be ostracized for it.
So now you're back at Chardon, where you started, where you played high school ball, a program that's been kind of on a downswing, but you're trying to bring it back up. You had a great way to end the season on a 63-0 win, go out with an exclamation point. Right. Talk to me about where this program goes now, where you see it in a couple years from now, and the ultimate goal for you.
Well, I mean, again, we've revamped our weight room. I mean, about $40,000 was put into it this past spring. We've always had great kids here. I mean, kids that are going to run through a brick wall for you. But ultimately, football, like any game, it's developmentally based. I mean, you got to develop the fundamentals in order to be successful. And I think I have a great coaching staff right now. I have an administration that supports it, a superintendent that supports football, in a community. I mean, a community I think that's starved for success here. The beautiful thing about Division II football, which we're in, is that it's a very competitive division. I think you look at Division I, and to some degree, you've seen the same characters every year there. It's more Catholic dominated. Same thing with Division III and Division IV, where Division II is very competitive. I'm not making, I mean, we got to worry about beating West G Week 1 next year, so I'm not going to say anything along those lines. We got a long way to go, but I know for a fact that we have the staff and we have kids willing to work, so I'm encouraged by that.
All right, thanks a lot, Coach. Good luck to you. Coach Mitch Hewitt here at Chardon High School, former player at BG under Urban Meyer.